The Celtics are just a couple days or weeks from their best big man returning to the court fully and being inserted into the starting lineup. This is another episode of Celtics Digest. I'm your host, Godfrey Sympre. Without further ado, man, let's get started. But before we get started with today's video, I just want to make sure you guys are hitting the subscribe button, hitting the like button on this video. Man, we appreciate you guys for your support, man, and let's get started. But before we get started, I just want to talk about, before we talk about the one and only Kristaps Porziņģis, I want to talk about this. The Celtics are finally visiting the White House after their 2024 championship victory. Now, we see a lot of teams that visit the White House after they win their chip, and without further ado, the Celtics are going to be the next team to be doing this. It's going to be very fun to see the moments that are created from this viewing at the White House, and they're supposed to be going around 4:30 Eastern on Thursday afternoon, and to talk with President Biden, seeing all these moments that happened during the season, and just this is probably the last moment to really remember that last year's championship. Now, the funniest thing that I'm going to bring you guys is when Joe Mazzulla was asked on if he had any thoughts about going to the White House this week, his response was, "No, sir." This is the most Joe Mazzulla answer ever. I mean, we could talk about Joe Mazzulla for a while. He always has these great moments, these great responses to everything that's being said. Now, that's just one thing I want to get out the way. Now, we're going to be talking about Jrue Holiday. He's supposed to be returning to the team in this next game against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, this game is a very big game. Man, they're going to be expecting a lot out of Jrue because of who we're facing. We're facing the 14-0 Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, the Cavs, they played a lot of good teams so far this year, but I think the Celtics are going to be their best test. We played them in the playoffs last year, and we know we won that very easily, very handedly. But I think this test is going to be a great test for not only the Celtics, but the Cavs as a whole. Now, we see this tweet. Joe Mazzulla says that Jrue Holiday, who missed Saturday's win against the Raptors due to left knee tendinopathy, is good to go for tomorrow's game against the Cavaliers. And that's going to be a great help for the Celtics. And I expect the Celtics to end the Cavs' undefeated streak tomorrow. Now, I'm going to show you guys a couple of stats from Jrue this season. He's averaged 12.8 points, 3.9 rebounds, 4 assists per game, shooting 36% from 3 and 48% from the field. Now, Jrue, he's been playing kind of, I want to say off and on, but that's still Jrue Holiday, one of the best, I would say the best premier defender in the league. On a night in, night out basis, can provide you 20 plus points, shooting great from the 3-point line, and he has a lot to provide on a night-to-night basis with his defensive ability. We've seen it firsthand, and I can't wait for him to be back on the court tomorrow. Now, that brings up another thing I want to talk about, and it's a major update for the Boston Celtics. Now, Kristaps Porziņģis is ahead of schedule, it looks like. It looks like to me, and from my eyes, that Kristaps is ahead of schedule. Now, this report injury update came out today saying that Kristpas Porziņģis has reached the next phase in his recovery. As part of rehab, Kristaps and Xavier Tillman will be assigned to the main Celtics for practice. Following practice, they will be recalled, and Porziņģis will ramp up his workload. Now, I'm loving this because Kristaps, it looks like he's ahead of schedule, but we don't possibly know. A lot of people were saying that he could be back in early December, possibly January, or even as late as after the All-Star break. But it looks like he's going to, start his ramping up and starting to get physical, with other players on the court. We know that we've seen him at shoot around, just a lot of non-contact stuff. But it looks like he's starting to get to that point where his comfortability, and he's going to start playing real hard, real physical at practice. Now, I thought it was interesting how they brought Xavier Tillman with him. Xavier Tillman has not had the best year. A lot of people thought he was going to break out, myself included, or I thought he was going to be one of the higher, get more minutes out of all the big men, out of Luke Cornett or Neemias Queta. Now, we've seen Nimi, he's been having a great season so far, just doing everything on the board. It's been playing some decent perimeter paint defense. he could honestly be better, and I think that's the one thing that we're missing when Kristaps comes back is just that force in the paint to get blocks, handle these amazing great centers in the league, and I think that's what the big thing we're missing with Kristaps. And once Kristaps is back, we're gonna get that back. Now with uh with Xavier Tillman, he hasn't had the best year this year, and I don't know if it's because we all thought that he was going to break out and have this tremendous season, but we haven't seen it yet from him this year, playing a lot of garbage time minutes, hasn't been playing with a lot of the starters a lot of the time, and except in a couple of games where Al Horford has been out because of his back-to-back rule. But this year, he's only averaged 1.5 points, 2 rebounds, half an assist, you know, basically a foul, shooting under 30% from the field goal and 3-point range. Now, the biggest thing about Xavier Tillman is that his defense has always been above average and really good at defending paint and on the perimeter. But the problem is if you can't shoot, you know, a lot of players can shoot themselves out of a rotation, and it looks like that's what's happening with Xavier Tillman right now. I always talked about how if he developed that corner three, he would be unstoppable and someone that needs to have those minutes. And a lot of people, including myself, also thought that this was going to be his breakout year into the rotation fully, but it does not look like that is going to happen. As much as I wanted him to have a great year, it looks like, you know, just as much as I wanted him to, the offensive part of his game that has been lacking his whole career is still not there. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe just, you know, going with the main Celtics, practicing with Kristaps might bring up his confidence, bring up, you know, how he plays the game, and hopefully he can come back shooting the ball with confidence, earning more minutes, because we all know how great of a defensive player he is. Now with Kristaps coming back, there's so many things to talk about, but the biggest thing is him coming back. We're so close for him to actually come back, be full into the roster, into the starting lineup, and that's going to help the Celtics tremendously. As we've seen, a lot of centers recently have been going off against the Celtics, having good games. Most notably, Jakob Poeltl. The other day, he had a great game against the Celtics. And I think once Kristaps is able to return and is fully healthy, whenever that is, I know that the Celtics, even though they're playing well right now, they're 11-3, we know that they can run off a couple games and continue their great form. And with their game tomorrow night against the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm very excited to see this game because I think it is one of their big early tests. Playing an undefeated team that has not lost a game, that's played a great selection of teams already. We're going to see what this Celtics team, after their championship and everything, is really made of. We know they've lost a couple of games already. They lost to the Warriors. But knowing them, they're going to be able to bounce back. And I think this is going to show them that they're really one of those teams to beat. Even though we already know it, there's still those haters, those doubters that don't really understand that the Celtics are still the team to beat in the East and in the NBA in general. Now, let me know your guys' thoughts down below. This is another episode of Celtics Digest. Let me know what you guys expect out of the White House visit, and one word to describe the visit you think it's how you think it's going to go. Now, it's another episode of Celtics Digest. I'm your host, Godfrey Sympre, and see ya.